Building an indie business in the center of venture capital. I am Alex Edmonds. People know me as SupremeRumHam on the internet, and this is the Building an Indie Business podcast. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about what I learned writing a book. And it's a lot of things related to the book, related to building a product. So let's get into it. The very first thing I learned is that virality is fake. In my research of how to promote a book, I stumbled onto some services that will help companies get more views on their social media posts by basically having not bots, but like, what do you call it? It would be more like accounts that this company created to get more eyeballs on the product and like retweet it and like it. And they had different types of accounts. So like one for sports, one for beauty, things like that. So I realized that anytime a product goes viral, in quotes, it's probably not actual virality. Okay. Another thing I learned, and this is a very big one, is to accept help. So I had a lot of help on this book. Brendan helped me with editing and so many more things. That's why if you read the special thanks in the book, he's in the special thanks section for that reason. He helps me. He let me use his Grammarly account to edit the book. He would help me with stuff related to the blog and like getting more people to see it, increasing the SEO score, so that way I could generate traffic, organic traffic. And then Shaw really helped me with the blog. I said, hey, how do you get more email subscribers? Like how would I for Open Podcasts? And like an hour later, he comes with picture examples of what I could do instead of just saying, hey, do this. So yeah, the pop-ups, that was his idea. In every blog post, there's a, like, at the intro paragraph right after that, there's like, hey, did you know you can subscribe? That was his idea. And there was one more thing, the pop-up. I can't remember, but there were 3 things, and he created examples of what they could be. Okay. Another thing, this is kind of related. Use tools to make my life easier. And so using tools for me is a difficult thing, because on some level I feel like I'm cheating because I'm making it easier for myself. But that's not the case. The only thing that matters is the end result. And unless you cheated someone, like you stole their content or their code or whatever, then you're okay. The tools are there to make your life easier, so that you can focus on, the big picture things. Like for me, that was writing. So I used a lot of tools. I used Hemingway for editing, Grammarly for editing, Gumroad to purchase the book, to get people, like, as a storefront. So the tools would be another form of accepting help. And so those tools that I used helped me focus on writing instead of things that wouldn't move the book forward. So like instead of Gumroad, my other idea was to set up a Stripe store, and that would have taken me some time because I had to figure out how to set up the book and set up Stripe with it. and in May, that shouldn't have been something that I focused on, right? Because the book wasn't done. I needed to focus on writing the book and getting it done, and Gumroad helped me do that. Okay. Yeah. So, tools, A+. Another thing I learned is, of course, how to create an ebook. And, yeah, so you need an .epub file, and you need a mobile file. And, sorry. Yeah, I don't want to go into this too much because I'm doing an episode on creating an ebook. But yeah, you need those two files for different devices. Okay. Try to control as much of the try to control as much of the user experience as possible. So what I mean by this is it's very important to manage the experience of a user, so that way they don't get distracted with other things on like that. If there was another platform they would get distracted by. So let me give you a perfect example. So I originally had the Gumroad page, and I would give people just a link to the Gumroad page. And when I wasn't controlling that user experience on the Gumroad page, they could leave the Gumroad page and like look for other products instead of just sticking to mine, right? So I didn't want to lose people like that. So what I did was I embedded the Gumroad page on on my personal website, not the podcast website, and the blog. On the blog. Like, I created a page on the blog for the embed, and that way, when people left to go somewhere else on the website, they would still be going to my content, right? So that is an advantage. And then another way to control the user experience is through promotion. So I don't really focus on social media. What I do is I focus on email, and the reason why I do this is because it's very easy to just scroll by a post on social media. I've talked about this. It's in the book. And so when you send an email to someone, they focus on it more because they have to click and open it and they'll read it. And people get less email than they do, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh yeah, then posts on, they see less email than they do posts on social media. So they're giving their email extra focus compared to a social media post. Okay. I learned about the publishing industry. I had no interest in getting this book published by another company, but I looked into it a bit. It turns out that sometimes an author only makes $1 per book sold. So because there's so much money that goes into the promotion of the book, and you get an advance from the publishing company when they say, yeah, we'll take your book. And this advance, it's literally an advance. It's a loan. They're loaning you money so you can finish the book or whatever. And so you have to pay that back, and sometimes they get the first money that comes in. So if they give you $100,000, the first $100,000 made from the book, it's their money. And that's uncool. Okay, the next thing I learned about writing. The next thing I learned is about writing. Sorry. Um, yeah, I learned about passive and active voice. I remember learning that in school, but I never really learned what it was. So, yeah. And then, where am I? I learned how to shorten my sentences because Hemingway, that's what Hemingway teaches you. Its main feature is that it highlights your long sentences or sentences that don't make sense. And so, what was I going to say? Sentences that don't make sense. Oh yeah, so you have to get rid of those, and I learned how to shorten my sentences before even putting it through Hemingway. Eventually, when I was at like chapter 20 of the book. Yeah, and I learned editing. I learned how to like change my passive voice to active voice, shorten my sentences, and other errors I was making. So yeah, it helped me become a better writer. Okay. SEO. I learned some search engine optimization. So all I really knew before is about backlinks, and I really learned that actually I'm not going to talk about this too much because I want to do an episode on podcasting SEO. Yeah, so I learned about backlinks, domain authority, meta tags. I didn't really know their purpose before, right? But I knew they were related to SEO. Like, before all this, no web page of mine had meta tags. But now, all of them do. All 100 of them. Okay. I learned book formatting as well. And what I mean by this is like, there's H1 tag, H2 tag, and an H3 tag. I didn't know what the difference was, so I learned that H1 is like the title, H2 is the subheading, and H3 is the subheading of the subheading, right? So it would be like, this chapter is about live streaming. That was the H1 tag. H2 tag would be like how to live stream, and then the H3 tag would be use Twitch. So yeah, and then I learned that the H tags are used to create the table of contents. So yeah, that was interesting. Okay, the next thing I learned about is hiring. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about this either because I'm going to do an episode on it. But I hired a bunch of people to become an affiliate to help me sell the book. And this helped me learn like what a nice resume looks like, what all the formats and everything. And I paid attention to what resumes caught my eye. And so that way I could take what I learned from those people and use it on my own resume. And then I learned about job descriptions, and I learned what really needs to be said in a job description to get people to understand what the job is, because I had 2 different job descriptions. I had, I think I did commission sales associate, and I did commission marketing associate, and the only difference was I changed the job description, and I still got like the same questions. So I had the next job. I'm not gonna do another job description, but like if I ever wanted to hire someone again, I know what words I would need to use to stop people from asking me the same question. So yes, yeah. I learned many famous authors have substance abuse issues. So like Hemingway, what's the other guy? The one who wrote the Gatsby, Bukowski. They all have like problems with alcohol. I just happened to learn that because I was trying to When the book was done, I tried to like figure out how I can level up my my writing for the next thing I'm gonna do. So I ended up like looking at their history and what they did, and it turns out like all of them, they talked about alcohol like in their Wikipedia postings. So I thought that was interesting for the most part. I don't know. I learned about automation. So I'm really bad at like automating things, and I like to do things myself. And I learned just to automate, and that would help me focus on things. So like one example would be the tools. Because I used Grammarly and Hemingway, I didn't have to, like go line by line and wonder if my sentences were wrong or the way I phrased something was wrong, because I had Grammarly and Hemingway that would automatically tell me that my sentence was wrong. Another thing I learned to automate is the sales process. So with hiring, I was automating the sales because someone else would be doing that work for me instead of me having to go door to door on the internet and get each person to buy the book. So yeah, I did that with sales. And then SEO. I'm doing a lot of SEO to raise my search ranking, my rank in the search results, and so that way that would automate the traffic to the podcast website and the blog, and hopefully that would lead to more people finding the book and buying the book. So yeah, I learned automation. Yeah, the next thing I learned is that the amount of sales you get is directly linked to the size of your audience. So if you have a small audience, you're gonna get a small amount of sales. And so what I mean by this is usually a small percentage is going to buy a book or any product that you have. So let's say you have 100, you have an audience of 100, right? You would be very lucky if 5 people bought that book because it bought that product because it's 5%. That's huge. That's a huge conversion rate. So so if you have 50 people in your audience, expect 1 person to buy it. So yeah, the smaller your audience, the less amount of sale, the fewer amount of sales that you will be getting. Just saying. I learned that writing a book is not about book sales. And what I mean by this is when you write a book, that creates opportunities that will lead to more money. So when you write a book, people will ask you to come speak at their conference or to their employees or whatever, and they pay you $500,000, and that's to give a speech to 1,000 people. So you have a big publisher, right? You make $1 to $2 per book, and you're getting paid $500,000 to come speak, like summarize your book to that 1,000 people. So if those people bought your book, you'd be making at most $5, so $5,000. Now this company is going to pay you 100 times that to go speak to their employees about the book. That's where the money's coming in for someone who published a book. And you might do that maybe 5 times. So that means you're making $2.5 million off your 5 speeches about the book, right? So, yeah, for some people, books are about opportunities and not book sales. Okay. I learned about email marketing, of course, because Shaw helped me with that. And so I learned how to optimize a blog for email subscribers. So like there's doing pop-ups, there's having a tab where people can subscribe to the email list and things like that. Oh, and making sure people reading the article can subscribe in the middle of the article. Things like that. Finish promoting before launching. So yeah, this is one thing I did not do, but I will do next time. So I had 25 chapters, let's just say that. And I already wrote 2 of them before I decided to write the book. And then I went off and I just started writing. And then I realized that these blog posts could become a book. I could stitch them all together and they could become a book. And so I then announced the book. And then after that, I just kept releasing blog posts and I didn't really time it out. So what happened was I had blog posts left over in my drafts page that I hadn't released before the book was released. And something happened. One of those blog posts blew up on the internet. They got a lot of traffic for me and email subscribers. And I keep thinking, what if I had released this blog post before the book? Those were people that I could have launched the book to and increased my audience size and got more people to buy the book, because not one of those subscribers has bought the book. And I also keep thinking, what if one of the four other blog posts that are in my drafts also blew up on the internet and gotten me subscribers? Those are more people. So I'm leaving out people that I could have launched to simply by waiting to launch the book. So my lesson that I learned here is finish promoting, then launch, right? And this is related in a way. Don't announce so soon. So, like, the book was written. I knew the book was coming out. I didn't need to tell people in April that I was writing a book. So, the reason why I should have waited and announced later is because you don't want to annoy people. You don't want to annoy people with you talking about your product so much. So I announced it in April and the release date was July. So I had May, June, and July talking about the book, and I may have run out of things to talk about, but if I had just announced it at the end of June and said it's 1 month, I'm launching in a month, that would give me, I would definitely have not run out of things to talk about. Not that I did, but it would be okay for me to tweet every day about the launch, and the launch would stay fresh in people's minds by seeing it, and maybe I would get more pre-orders for the book. Yeah, so that was a lost opportunity. the final thing I learned is that Gumroad is slow with their embeds. So it would take the page on the blog to load like maybe 10 seconds, which is very slow considering that with my code, my personal code, the code on the blog, not the blog website, the podcast website, it loads in less than a second. So I looked into it and I saw why it was taking so long, because it adds everything to the embed. It'll add Stripe, which they use to take payments. It adds every discount code that I used to the code. It adds stuff from Facebook and from Google. Yeah, every discount code. This is so ridiculous. Even discount codes that were used. Like when I gave a discount code to a single person and they had used it, that was still in the code. It's ridiculous. It's insane. So yeah, Gumroad is a great service. That's the only thing bad I'm going to say about it, that it was slow. It's not a big deal. But truly, I will probably be using another service for another product. One that's faster. I'm going to have to look at the code from now on and see if it adds another layer. And so when I did the embed on the blog, it had so many layers, and that's why it was even slower than on the podcast website. So it had everything from Ghost, everything from Firebase, everything from Pork Bun. So, and then on top of that was Gumroad. Yeah, so it had 3 or 4 things loading, and that's why it was so slow. The reason why it was faster for my podcast website was because it just had things from Firebase and Pork Bun and Gumroad. So it had 3 things versus 5 things, which is what the podcast website had. Not the blog has. Okay. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, you can email me. Remember, there's the open podcast, community podcast. So if you want to record an episode without the hassle of podcasting to get the experience, contact me on Twitter at SupremeRumHam. Same thing on Telegram, SupremeRumHam@gmail.com. And I'm looking for writers to write about their podcasting experience for the Open Podcast blog. So if you're interested, contact me for that as well. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Bye.